Okay, we're live now. Hello, everyone. We're going to start in a little while. We're all ready. You can see our presenter. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds so that everybody has time to log in. I hope you're doing well. Let us know where you are. You're working from home, you're working at the office again. Let's see. So, okay, we're about to start. Just a few seconds left. Okay, let's get going. Hello, everyone, and as always, welcome to today's Gala webinar. I am Isabella Massardo, I'm Gala's content strategist, and today's presentation is focused on localization for right-to-left languages and incorporating the Unicode bidirectional algorithm to reach a wider audience. Before we get started and before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. You're all muted to cut down on noise. You can use the chat button on your control panel to chat with other attendees and with the speaker. At any time during the webinar, feel free to submit your questions to the presenter. You just type them in the QA box at the bottom of your control panel. And as time allows, the presenter will address as many questions as she can during the QA session at the end of the presentation. We will be recording the webinar, and I'll share the link with you in a follow-up email after the event. And in any case, you'll find the recording will be published on the Gala website tonight or tomorrow at the latest. Now, without further ado, let me introduce today's presenter. We have Ghada Shakir. Welcome, Ghada.
Thank you, Isabella.
Ghada teaches at the Middlebury Institute for International Studies and is the CEO of Gingo's Localization, Translation and Culture, which is a virtual language service provider. So welcome, Ghada, and I'm going to leave the floor to you because I know that you have a very interesting presentation. I don't want to take up too much time with small talk, so please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Isabella, for the introduction, and thanks all for being here today. I am myself thrilled to be here today. This means a lot to me to be able to present for Gala. This is an amazing opportunity to reach Gala's audience and in order to educate them more on localizing for right-to-left languages. Just a short intro about my background. I'm a native Arabic speaker. I grew up partly between the Middle East and Europe. So I grew up immersed in both languages and cultures. So I grew up speaking both Arabic and English at the same time. So let's get a head start on our presentation. So just a quick introduction to right-to-left languages. There are 12 right-to-left languages. That is the written version of the languages. And here's a list of these languages in alphabetical order. So, and the most commonly used here in the United States and that we commonly see are probably Arabic, Hebrew, Persian, Urdu. I seen some Aramaic here and there. Rohingya now is on the rise as well. Now that with the, there are people migrating and the population of right-to-left language speakers and writers is on the rise here in the United States. The RTL writing system, right to left, RTL for short for right to left. So basically, writing starts from right to left. And all printed media, newspapers, books, magazines, brochures, open up from the right-hand side. And usually that's where things start. And RTL users define the beginning as on the right-hand side of everything. So just to note, those of you who are in marketing or AI, it's the human eye for a right to left user tends to start from the right. So even when a right to left user opens up any website or any media of any type, automatically the eye goes to the right to start looking at that page, versus a left to right person starts on the left-hand side. So to capture the attention of a right to left user doesn't mean it's just the writing system, doesn't mean just the writing starts from right to left, but keep in mind that the eye will immediately starts looking at the object or any printed media or website from right to left. So the eye is trained to start from right to left. Only people who are maybe translators or immersed in both languages will automatically make that switch, which takes, a couple of milliseconds to do that. So here are some examples of printed media. This is a brochure for the city of Milwaukee that my team worked on. And as you can see, this is a left to right orientation, and this one is the right to left. So it opens up from the other side. So when I was working with the designer to help her out with the layout, she was a little bit confused on how are we going to print this in opposite order. So at the end, I just told her, just reverse it. I kept telling her, mirror it and do a mirror version of it. She did not get it quite right. But when I told her, print it in reverse order and you'll be fine. And this is, at the end, we got, she perfected this. So if we look at the right to left and left to right, it's a perfect mirror image of the original. So newspapers, storefronts in the Middle East, a lot of the countries now are adopting both names in like storefronts in English and in the local language, and it's a transliteration of course of the name of the business. Websites. So if you look up any website that is targeted for, this is from the Middle East, and it's actually a website that is localized into Arabic. They did not use any machine translation or anything for that. So if you look at it, it's an exact mirror image of the original. So where does the challenge, okay, all of that looks good. Yes, we can mirror it. Okay, but how do we do this? Where does the challenge lie in printed media or in the writing? It lies in that the problem with right to left is that it's not a problem, but it's a fact that writing from right to left is not just writing from right to left as we do in English. We do everything from left to right. However, in right to left languages, there is left to right languages embedded, or text embedded inside of the the right to left text. So for example, phone numbers, acronyms, abbreviations that need to stay in the original language, and I'm just referring here just for the sake of example, for example, in English, that needs to stay in English inside the Arabic. So there are two directional texts inside one. So that's why we call it bidirectional. So how do we achieve that without missing anything? So when we embed a left to right text inside a right to left text, the challenge is where we have line breaks, where we have commas inserted, how the line is going to continue on the next line. And we run into several of these issues as our project or the text we're working with gets a little bit more complicated. So for example, this is one of the challenging projects that my team worked on. This is just a small portion of it. We'll take a look at other examples a little later. So if you look at this example, so you see that this is a text, Persian text, Farsi. We see that the 800 number, is left to right and it's embedded in here. If we look at this number over here and how it's continued on the next line, it's chopped off and it kind of doesn't make sense to the reader. So do I start here or do I start here? How am I gonna figure out? So imagine this getting in the hands of a patient. This was a medical pharmaceutical project for a client. So imagine this gets into the hand of the patient and they're trying to reach, to contact that facility, and they can't get a hold of them because of the numbers that are just chopped. So that's where, we get, it gets challenging. I started paying a little bit more attention to this issue during the pandemic, when a lot of facilities and organizations started to kind of reach out to people to get tested initially. So that's where we started seeing a lot of inconsistencies and discrepancies as far as localizing their websites into different languages just to reach a wider audience. However, they were really not successful. I mean, this is not a mirror image of the original. This is totally flipped, and it doesn't make sense. You can't even read this. This is in Arabic. You can't read it. The characters are chopped off. Seems like, they were missing a font or something that they could not. And then they just put it out there without consulting with any kind of specialist to do that. So this website is totally off. Just need to minimize this. So, and the most important thing, maybe we can get away with something like this. Yeah, they can read, the menu bars and the buttons and whatnot. But right here, where it says you go, your go-to information, updates, and whatever, just to get tested, this is positioned totally in the wrong place, because it's not related to the text that it's in. So it's been shifted just because of the bidirection that's in this text, and the back end is not supporting the front end in such a way that this is just a total mess. Another issue, and this is a constant issue that we see all the time, and it is frustrating because when we deal with documents that are very big documents, this is a product of a CAT tool. And a few of the CAT tools that I've used, they all tend to have this issue. When you produce the translated document, this is what you get. You get the phone numbers all in reverse order. As I mentioned earlier, phone numbers and any kind of digits or numbers in right to left languages are still left to right. So this does not make sense to the reader. And we have to go back and change those manually to accommodate the right to left orientation and to accommodate that bidirectional test. So basically, the phone numbers in these CAT tools are following the baseline of the translated text, but not keeping in mind the bidirectionality that has to be left to right. That's where you need to put your if conditions and do that. We'll take a look at how to do that a little bit later. So just a little bit more information about right to left users. there are 600 million people worldwide that are right-to-left users. From the statistics that I looked at, between Hebrew, Persian, and Arabic in the United States, there are close to 2 million users, and not to mention, the other nationalities. So, and then for the user to capture the essence of a website or an app, it takes only 2.6 seconds for a user's eye to land on the area of the website that most influences their first impression. So I repeat that again for you who are in marketing or AI. This is where the eye falls on the website or the app. It goes directly to the right-hand side for right-to-left users. And the rest of the statistics, of course, it takes about 50 milliseconds for users to form an opinion about a website and whether to stay or leave. And then it all depends on how good your website is localized. That will also show how the engagement of the people using your website, and the number could fluctuate. So what do we need to do to get this right? So what we need to do is to implement the Unicode bidirectional algorithm, and which is BID in short. So what is the Unicode bidirectional algorithm? It's an algorithm inside Unicode, and it dictates what to do when you have two directionalities in a sentence or a general text. So it will be able to accommodate both directionalities of a text in one. So it will be a mixed text. So, and it's important to understand that in all major web browsers, the order of characters in memory, which is the logical order, is not the same as the order in which they are displayed. So the way it's stored in memory, it's not the same as the visual aspect of it and how we see it. So the set of rules applied by the browser to produce the correct order at the time to display are described as the Unicode bidirectional algorithm, and we're going to use BID from now on for short. So it's a set of rules that we apply so that the browser can display the bidirectional code in a manner that we can actually read and understand. So UTF is widely used in software development, and it's the most commonly used Unicode encoding system in web browsers and software. So, and the reason UTF is widely used because you can actually mix and match multiple languages, and symbols can be mixed in the same message. So UTF is our encoding system. The BID has 3 entity types. And once you have a grip and a good understanding of how this works, this will save you a lot of time trying to figure why the line continues on on the opposite side of the page, or the parentheses are not flipped, or the numbers are not in order, and all of that. So once you get a grip and understanding of how these entity types work, you will have a better understanding. You don't need to understand the language. We all work with languages that we can't read or understand, or that are quite challenging. So we define the BID entity types as strong, weak, and neutral. So strong affects the directionality of all entities around them. So such as the characters, like alphabets, they are strong entity types, and it affects the directionality. So whatever precedes it, follows it, will be impacted by the directionality of that preceding character. Weak entity types, on the other hand, do not affect, but are affected by the directionality of that strong ones around them. So for example, punctuation, parentheses, digits. So they will follow the direction of the text that precedes them. So if you remember the 800 number example, that's what happened, that the numbers followed the base direction of the text, and it just went from right to left, and it did not get displayed in order that it's supposed to be displayed. Neutral entity types. These are characters or like space, tab, new line. These do nothing. They're just there, and they just follow the directionality of the context. So if you are writing in Hebrew, for example, and then you put a space and add a Latin or Roman character, this just does not do anything, the space or the new line. So let's take a look at this example. This says flight number 235. So this is a right to left oriented or baseline text. So initially, when we typed this in, we used right to left, and then we switched to left to right to accommodate the 235. So to see how the entity types work, if we change the entire base direction to right using, for example, in words, you have the base direction to like left to right or right to left. So if we change it to right to left, this is what we will look at. However, if we put a space between the 235, between the 2 and the 3, this is what we get. The number 2 now follows the direction of the character that precedes it. Again, if we put a space between 3 and 5, also that will get flipped. So because these numbers are following the directionality of the numbers that precede them, because they are weak entity types, and the characters in the Arabic text here are strong entity types. This is also part of that complicated project that we worked on, also with parentheses. It gets a little bit even more challenging on where do you open up the parentheses and where do you close them, and do you switch directionalities with that. So with parentheses in particular, you want to follow the base direction of the text. So here, for example, the direction of this code right here, this is like an insurance document. The opening, although it shows that it is follows the English, but actually doesn't. This follows the base direction of the entire document, which this is in Arabic. So parentheses, you open them in your right to left fashion, insert the bidirectional text or whatever, the English, for example, here, and then close it with the Arabic text. So that's where you switch your languages. We're going to take a look shortly on what's happening in the background. So this is just a little bit more information that Unicode provides several special control characters that makes it possible to control directionality of ranges of text. And that's what's happening in the backend. And we'll take a look at all of these commands that are making this happen. So, and then there are two sets of control characters. One set opens the override and another restores the original directionality. So when you are, for example, opening a parentheses, you are using that control character. And then to open up that bidirectionality, and then you put in your text, and then you have to close it so that it will go back to the original directionality of the original text. So you always have to follow each opening character with an appropriate closing character. Otherwise, you'll have an effect that's called a spillover effect. And we'll take a look at an example of a spillover effect shortly. So this is what's happening in the back end. These are the characters that are used to open up and then close your characters and change the directionality of the text. So for example, you have the RLI right to left isolate. This is the code point of it in Unicode, and this is the equivalent markup. This isolates right to left from left to right. And then, you have the left to right embedding, that's the most commonly used, which sets the base direction to right to left, but allows embedded text to interact with surrounding content. That's why we said there's a spillover effect, and we'll take a look at an example. So it embeds that other language inside of that text, or other directionality text in that one direction text, and then you need to close it in order to have it displayed correctly. However, in HTML and CSS, the easiest way of doing it is just by using the equivalent markup. So they all pretty much do the same. Again, remember to close the range, because without closing the range, you will have that spillover effect. Sorry. Okay. So let's take a look at this example. So to change the base direction for run of inline, you need to indicate a start and endpoint. So this is where we did the start. So this, if we go back to here, it is the RLE, which is the right to left embedding. And then this is the closing character for it. So here I spotted the greeting marhaba, which is hi or hello in Arabic, 3 times in this letter. So if you look at this, there is no closing character over here. So this will not get displayed in a correct fashion. So this way we need to close it. Otherwise we'll have a spillover effect. Let me just go to the spillover effect and then go back to that other phone number example. So just to show you an example of the spillover effect. So here it says, I visited the central market 3 times this week. So here we have an opening character, and here we have a closing character. However, we did not put an end to it. We need to close it, fully close that range. So the result will be, I visited 3 central market times this week. So this is what we call the spillover effect. However, if we close the range, we have opening character, closing character, and then we need to close the range. And this is when it will get displayed correctly. And it says, I visited like the central market 3 times this week. Okay. Another example here is that for also opening character, closing character, here we're using markup and setting the directionality of the phone number. And this is the easiest way to do it, is that we use the markup equivalents, of course, depending on what we're using to build our website or app or whatever. So if we look at the results here, the first one just followed the directionality of the text that it is following, and here we forced it basically we put an override for that. Yes, there is a spillover effect here because we didn't close the range. However, there's nothing after it, so it's not going to change anything. So it gets displayed in the correct manner, and the same here. Okay, so where do I start, and how do I start planning for RTL support? So, we start with the highest level of RTL compatibility. Basically, we need to add it to the initial design, and by setting up the directionality or the markup into RTL. However, other RTL compatibility features are inserted into later stages because we might have graphics, we might have tables and images, and other types of objects. So for web pages, for example, a web page layout must support RTL by using the markup. That's the highest level, just to be on the safe side, to display the entire page right to left. We can also use auto instead of specifying. So this way, the browser will detect what language they're using, and then it will customize it accordingly. It doesn't always work, but all depends on the context that you're working with. So for example, here is a website of public schools, and this is the original, of course, and then they used this was sent to me to evaluate what it looks like once we hit translate into Arabic using the browser machine translation. And this is what we got. And I got back to the clients, and I'm like, just doesn't look right. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for it to display it appropriately. In this school district, there is a particularly large number of Arabic speaking students and parents. So they're targeting about 35% of their population, and then this is what the results are. So things need to be changed drastically for it to display properly. So if we look at the Arabic here, yes, it is in Arabic. It's machine translated. This is not our topic of discussion, but okay, if we assume that the text is translated correctly and whatnot, so everything stayed in its place. It's just that the text that switched. Well, sometimes you can probably get away with machine translation for a website where you click on the Google Translate, for example. And then if it's just like a basic website, it's okay maybe to use that, and then you can display everything where it's at as long as it makes sense. So just by the simple fact, like right here, we just added the RTL to the HTML tag. This is what we got. So what we got here is that, okay, the text shifted to the right. Here, the bullet points also shifted to the right. However, the orientation of this text box is still shifted to the left. So this is a matter of content and whatever the holder is, which is the text box. So then the interface and the content are in two different directionalities. So here the content is right to left. However, the text box orientation is set to left to right. So that needs to change, and that needs to be specifically specified when you're building that text box. So it does not follow the directionality of the entire page. So content set to RTL, text box is set to left to right, and then the header orientation follows the main page orientation, such that this displayed in that matter. What do I do if I need to translate my website using machine translation? So there is the tendency to use the drop-down box at the top of the browser to translate your website into different languages. Again, this is not our topic of discussion about machine translation, but you could get away with it for some basic websites. However, to work around this, and you or your client want to use that drop-down menu and incorporate the Arabic in it, of course, this code is a little bit more elaborate. I just put that small piece of it. So what you need to do is that you need to find out, you detect where you're getting your website machine translated in the code, and kind of build that condition to detect the content language. So if it's Arabic, then direction is RTL, else the content will be LTR. So this is a good way of inserting that condition in there, just to give that sense of directionality for your reader. Again, it's a good way it's a good start to make it accommodate right to left. Forms alignment comes after aligning other user interface elements or textual alignments. Also, it needs to be specifically stated that directionality of the form is RTL, just for the sake of time. Okay. Here, for example, this is an HTML form. So direction for the first and last names here are set to RTL, and this is all RTL regardless of the language. Again, when we have any kind of like text boxes or tables or whatnot, even if we set it, or drop down menus are a big item online. Not all drop down menus will display it correctly, because the content is set to a direction and the drop down menu is set to another direction. So content versus interface is something also to pay attention to. So content does not follow the direction of the interface. So for example, a live example, I was answering a message on, I think, Facebook Messenger the other day. And when I type in Arabic, it starts from the left. So the orientation of that text box where I'm typing is left to right. So the letters were coming the opposite direction. However, when I hit enter, it displays correctly on in the message exchange. So that is laid out correctly. So that's the difference between content and interface. Buttons should be flipped and a mirroring image of the English, and they must have a right position relevant to the UI. However, you cannot implement the RTL attribute to buttons, and it has to be adjusted manually to accommodate that. So you need to set your margins or whatever to kind of adjust that in a good way. So here, this is adjusted just by changing the margins of these buttons. All right, so now we get more into interface and images and how that works. I get asked a lot about icons and how do we flip icons and do we not flip icons, and how do we do this? So typically symmetrical icons, they're symmetric, so you really do not need to flip them in any way. I mean, even if it has, for example, this grip right here, the boxing glove, you really don't need to flip symmetrical icons. Arrow icons. Arrow icons, you need to be very cautious when you flip arrows, because it could mean anything. So for example, in Microsoft Word, you go into this to do undo, and this right arrow here to do redo. This is not the same for right to left users. It's actually the opposite. So it is a little bit confusing to see that. So you will see that this will be the redo because it's going back to the right, and then I'm sorry, this is an undo. The right arrow will be an undo because it's going back to the right, and then the left arrow will be a redo, basically come back to the, to where you were at. So it tends to be, so you have to be very careful and considerate when you are using arrows. However, media buttons and any kind of like YouTube or Netflix or any kind of media buttons, they are universal. So these do not be flipped, and then right to left users are used to what the player looks like. Currencies, you do not flip. Charts, you flip charts and bars only if the text on the chart is localized. So only if you really have to. That also is, considered somewhat universal layout. However, we do see charts flipped in different directions, and it all depends on the text you are utilizing on this. So, but however, you do not flip pie charts as well. This is a universal layout. Time and date, of course, we do not flip. Icons with text alignment depends on how deeply in details you want to get. So if you can flip a text that has an alignment, an icon that has a text alignment, flip it. If your client is not that picky, or it's too much work to do, or it shouldn't matter, but it will be nice. So it's a bonus if you can flip icons that have a text alignment. Toggle buttons you flip. Also, again, the eye of the right to left user views toggle buttons in a different fashion. So it's the opposite of what a left to right user perceives toggle buttons. Also, book icons flip if they show alignment. Question mark icons also we flip because it has to accommodate the directionality. So when you're typing in Persian, for example, or Farsi, automatically the question mark will show in that flipped fashion. Progress bars also need to be flipped. And then we have other icons. These are things that your choice, whether you want to flip them or not. It's unnecessary, but if you wanted to, I get a lot of questions about the search bars and whether we should, flip the search icon. I don't see that necessary personally. So, and I've seen it in many websites that have been localized already, and it's not flipped. Logos, we do not flip the logo unless the client has a different logo for that localized website. I was just on yesterday. I was just kind of flipping websites just to get some ideas on I did not put it in here, but CNN has like a logo for CNN, and then they have a logo for the Arabic version website of CNN. So it's two different logos. It does have the typical CNN, but it's kind of modified to show that it's in Arabic. So unless the logo has another version in a different language, that's when we use those. Images, I get also asked a lot about images. Images, we do not flip them. It's just that we need to reposition. Again, images, the RTL attribute does not work for images, so that has to be manually set and positioned. That's why just using to switch the language using machine translation does not flip. It changes the directionality of the text. However, it does not flip the entire page and flips it. If there's a functionality that does that, that would be great. But right now it needs to be positioned manually. So if you look at these images, for example, they are the same. It's just that the positioning is a mirror image of the original. All right, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions, and please stay in touch. Email me if you have any questions. I have my WhatsApp and SMS messaging on here. And if you're on LinkedIn, let's connect. Isabella?
Yes, thank you, Gada. That was very interesting and extremely detailed, so very useful as well. Thank you so much. There are a couple of questions, actually. Okay, so to start with, some of these are writing in Arabic in the chat, so I leave that to you to read it.
Okay.
It's a big thank you, but I can't read that. So. But let's start with some of the questions, for example, from Ibrahim. And in the beginning, he asked, the problems that you mentioned are encountered everywhere when you localize. And do you think that in the future, RTL languages can become as natural to use or to translate into as left to right languages?
Thank you, Ibrahim, for your question. Yes, I agree with you. These are problems that are encountered everywhere, and we see them every day. RTL languages can become natural to use or translate as LTR languages. Well, there's a rise of immigrants to the United States that use right to left languages, and then the world is becoming more globalized, of course, so we are extending our reach into cross borders, so it's not like limited to the United States or anything. So, and then with the advancement of machine translation and artificial intelligence and natural language processing, I absolutely see that becoming more advanced. And as we go, actually, I mean, if you look at localized websites in Arabic, for example, from 10 years ago, they look totally different than they do today. They are more professional. They do reach a wider audience. And so the answer to your question is yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I answered your question.
Another question from Chris Maddox.
Right. How does one handle alignment issues with text and image for mobile issues when the language is changed to a RTL language from LTR? Thank you, Chris, for your message. Well, the alignment issues, text, we can use the RTL attribute. However, for images, we need to position them using, margins and, defining the coordinates of the image. Okay, another question from Ibrahim. Is this thing? No, there is no direction that is BIDI. There's a direction RTL, LTR, and auto, which will detect the direction of that page, and then it will adjust the thing accordingly, the text accordingly. Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, there are a couple of questions in the QA box as well. So
okay.
If you want to take them afterwards.
Sure, let's do that. Thank you, Anna, for your question. How are the guidelines for mobile Android iOS different from the web? It's very similar. Actually, for Android, it is a built-in functionality that will detect. So you set that from the very start in your forgot the file name, but if we set it from the very start, and iOS also has that functionality as well. So I can, if you contact me, I can send you that. I do have it in one of my previous presentations from class that we talked about iOS and Android. So there are already built-in functionalities for directionality. For Android is actually very efficient. What do you do not flip around math notation for educational material? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, digits and numbers are left to right. So any kind of notations will follow the left to right rule in those notations. So I hope that helps. All right, any more questions?
Let's see, maybe there are a couple of more questions. Okay.
Formulas, sorry. Yes, for formulas, if it's right to left, then it's right to left. So I hope that answers your question, Anna.
Okay. In any case, for those of you who have more questions, Gada has put her contact details on the screen, so feel free to connect with her. Thank you, Gada. It was a very interesting presentation, even for me. I don't speak Arabic. And I was very pleased to see that I met another person who knows who Dalida is, the singer, the very first slides that you showed. I think you and I are the only ones who know who she is. You did mention something about cat tools, and I wonder whether the latest cat tools that we have at our disposal still present issues for right to left languages. Maybe there are some tech providers who would like some suggestions.
I had, that one complicated document. We had the tables not adjusted. They had the numbers. I mean, there are a few items that I actually listed and reached out to the company that, the cat tool company. And I'm not sure if they did anything about it. Last time I used it, it still was there. So it seems like it hasn't been tackled yet. But I really hope that this will bring awareness to others that this is an issue and it's an inconvenience. I mean, we use cat tools to minimize time and, increase our productivity. And then at the end, we have to still go back into our documents and change those manually. I mean, we can do that manually. It takes a few minutes if it's a page or two, but when you have like a 75-page document and you need to go back and do this is just very much time consuming. So.
Yeah, and I see that Ibrahim agrees with you. He says we suffer with cat tools. So it's, let's hope that some improvement will come soon. So again, thank you, Gada, and thank you to all attendees. I see that there is another question. I don't know if you have time. We still have 8 minutes.
Sure. Nicoletta, thank you, Nicoletta, for your question. The RLEs and PDFs, when used in a large document, can they only be placed manually one by one, or can they be applied more globally? Well, if you have a plain text PDF or Word document or any kind of document that does not have a lot of graphics, yes, you can apply that in a global fashion where you can set the directionality of the entire page to right to left. And that's actually that's how it works with the Word. Actually, if you highlight, if you highlight the entire text and then hit the right to left command button, that's what it actually does.
Okay, let's see. I think what if it's an SRT file? So a file for subtitles.
I need to get back to you on that one. I believe you can still apply the RTL, but I need to get back to you on that, Nicoletta. Thank you for your question.
Okay, I think we're all done. There is question from Luz. How about ordering as in alphabetical order? How do you work that out in right-to-left languages?
Alphabetical order?
Mm-hmm.
What's
That's
the question?
The question is from Luz. She says, how about ordering as in alphabetical order? Maybe Luz.
Yeah. Well, if it's well, this is an ordering. This is just like a sort. That's a sort function. I don't know if I understand the question correctly, but this is a sort function that is pretty much the same as we use in English. So.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I'm going to slowly but surely close the webinar. Thank you, Gada, and thank you to all attendees. We would appreciate it if you could just take a minute to give us your feedback on today's session. So when I close the webinar, you'll see a feedback form. If you could fill it in, you're going to help us refine our webinar program. And have a small bit of news. We have opened our call for proposals for our September conference. So please visit our website if you have time, have a look at the call for proposals, and if you feel inclined, submit one. And next week's webinar will be focused on something slightly different. Will be on AI-enabled quality estimation, and the presenter will be Alex Janishevsky from We Localize. But for now, thank you again, Gada. Have a good day, everybody, or a good evening, depending on where you are. And I look forward to seeing you maybe next week or to another Gala webinar soon. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, everyone.